are going live. And if you're seeing this, then that's a good sign, because that means that a lot of this is going out to you on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And the last one I need to check is Periscope. Periscope, you're always key. Periscope. I heard myself, and that's a good thing too. It's not always a good thing, but in this case it is. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and go live. And I hope everyone's been having a great week this week and that you're off to a good start. After you hear this, it's going to be even better because you're with Association Chat. Welcome to Association Chat. This is your weekly online discussion for the association community, where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, Kiki L'Italienne, and I want to give a couple of shout outs to our sponsor and a special promotion for listeners before we move on to the show. And first, as always, big thanks to our wonderful sponsor, Fontiva, the AMS for Innovation. Thank you for your ongoing support of Association Chat and the community here. Check out Fontiva.com, guys, and it will tell you all you need to know about this great company and all they can offer. Check them out. And also, if you tuned in to the GDPR Association Chat with experts from the Trust Bridge, and they're answering all your questions, you'll be interested to hear that their experts are coming to DC February 26th through March 1st to conduct one-on-one consultations and workshops. And they're offering a 10% discount to Association Chat members. So if you're not a member already, and you should be, go to the private Facebook group today, and you can either click on the call to action button here in Crowdcast or check out the link in the private Facebook group for more information. And all right. There you go. Are we ready for this show? Okay. So today's show is all about creativity and persistence. You know, a lot of you are probably listening to this and you have already experienced making resolutions for the year. And maybe part of those resolutions had to do something with being more creative or doing something on a consistent basis. And for many of you, whether it's something that's creative or not, you've probably either given up, maybe for a moment, maybe for a lifetime. Jonathan Mann is our guest today. He's an American singer-songwriter, best known for creating and publishing a new song and video each day since January 2009 under the YouTube channel named Song a Day. And we're going to talk to him about something, a little something to do with creativity and persistence. He might know a little something about that. So welcome, Jonathan.
Hello.
Hello. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. So where to begin?
I don't know.
All right. So when I saw Jonathan, I've seen him perform his art, perform his music, 2 different conferences, just blew people away. It was just amazing. And so I actually left the keynote of the last conference I saw him at, and I tackled him and I said, wait. I want to talk to you. I have a million questions for you. And that's why he's here today. He graciously accepted. So Jonathan, let's just start out with this. All right.
Yeah.
You've written one song a day. You've produced a video a day. And, you know, eventually I would think that your songs have transitioned, that they've changed over time. And so I was curious. One of the first things that I got curious about was all right, so how have they changed over time? How have those themes sort of, I don't know, adapted, evolved?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. You know, if you're talking about doing something every day, like I have for, I'm in my 10th year now. So, so on next January 1st, it'll be 10 years, which is a big one.
It's huge.
A lot of the, one of the biggest things that I've noticed, and I didn't really notice it until maybe about 4 years in, and 4 or 5 years in, I don't know what that means, but I started to notice one vector that you can talk about how things have changed for me is it's just, you just get better at something, right? You practice something every day. And I'm writing these songs and I'm recording them. I'm often making videos for them. And so it was interesting to me when I started to realize what I've gotten better at over time. So like the thing that's gotten the better the most over these 9 years is my voice, actually. I think there's something about the act of singing every single day. I had taken voice lessons, a few here or there, some in college, some just with private people, and none of it really stuck or took. But I can listen back to old recordings of myself and hear the progression, that just training my voice every day and just singing, just the act of not practicing, not doing scales, not doing anything like that, just the act of singing every day. And I actually remember the moment very clearly. I was actually performing at a conference, XOXO in Portland, really wonderful small tech conference. And I remember looking back at the video of that, and noticing that my voice, I actually liked the way my voice sounded, which believe it or not, I mean, after all these years of doing it, that was 2013. So that was, 5 years in. Up until that point, I confess that I didn't really like the way my voice sounded, which seems strange, because I was doing it all the time and still recording myself. But I listened back to that and I was like, whoa, actually, like I'm actually hitting those notes and it sounds just different. And, so if there's a chart of like the way that my voice has gotten better over time, it's, this sort of exponential thing where I'm finding I can do things with my voice, like I said, just from doing it every day that I couldn't do before. And it's interesting to contrast that. This is already getting really wonky, but
no, I love it.
It's interesting to contrast it with something like my musicianship, playing, guitar and piano and, all the different instruments that I play, which has gotten better maybe, but it hasn't gotten better in the same kind of way. And it's really the answer, the reason to that is really obvious, actually, which is with my voice, it's the one thing that, every time I use it, I'm doing something different. I'm working out these like literal muscles, right? Oftentimes when I'm recording, I use a lot of shortcuts when I'm using.
Oh, right.
When I'm playing an instrument or something, I'm using a lot of shortcuts. I'm using the software to, like, if I'm off something rhythmically, rather than do like 10 takes to try to get the rhythm just right, I'll do one take and I'll move the rhythm ever so slightly in post. I'll fix it in post. And so in that way, my musicianship, while I would say it has improved somewhat, it hasn't improved as much as my voice. So
it's
so
really,
it's
beautiful. It's like a testament, though. This is something that I'm just in love with, this idea of strengthening whatever muscle, the effort muscle, the whatever muscle, by doing something different. And you do that with your brain. Of course, you do that with your voice. And so, I'm just fascinated by this idea. The song a day thing is really, obviously really cool, and everybody like follows that. But when you think about the trouble that we have in just doing anything every day, I mean, I hate to say it, but like there are nights I go to bed and I haven't washed my face, it's like,
of course.
it's like, so like, talk to me about, surely you have run into resistance along the way. Hey, Aaron, thanks for saying hi. Surely you've run into resistance along the way, and somehow you have overcome that. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that looked like in the early days versus what that looks like today?
Sure. Yeah, and that's something I hear a lot, and I'm the same way. Like, I confess there are definitely, like, there's very few things I feel like anybody does absolutely every day. And it's been like, whatever, I'm on like 3,233
But
days
who's counting?
of not having. I looked earlier so that I could
Yeah.
make sure I had the right number. So yeah, so um there's like two ways that I could answer this. It's like I'll give you there's like a spiel way, right, where I have a whole spiel. And then there's like another kind of deeper way that we could go if we want to. But
Let's go deep. Let's go deep.
the spiel way starts, and the spiel way is also true, which is you know, in the beginning of doing any creative act is this dance that you have to do, this bargaining that you have to do with fear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fear of not being good enough, and it's fear of being judged for producing something that's bad. It's fear of failure, of feeling like a failure for not, you know. And one of the things early on that I really stressed with Song a Day is this idea that it's okay to be bad. Like, it's okay to produce bad things. First of all, you don't have to share. I happen to share everything with everybody because that's sort of my personality. But like, if you do something every day and some of it is bad, that's totally fine. I had this like this idea called 70-20-10, which is 70% of everything you make is mediocre, 20% is bad. Like, just know that up front, that 20% of everything you do, 20% of every single Ass in Chat episodes are going to be bad. And
Don't tell them that.
and then 10% is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The calculus is, if you do a song a day, you're just going to have more songs that fall into that 10% bucket. And as time has gone on, I've realized that changes a bit, and that, I think the more you do something, the you can end up putting more things into that 10% bucket. Maybe those ratios change the more you practice something. The 10,000 hours thing, maybe something along those lines. But in general, it's about like realizing that it's okay to fail, and there's no real punishment for failure of anything creative other than the way that you feel when you made something bad, which is bad. You feel bad. But like, if you make something tomorrow, then you can just sort of let go of that bad feeling and try again. So that's the basic idea behind doing something every day, and the sort of freedom that it affords you, and the reason why you would want to do something like that. The sort of deeper thing is that surely and definitely there have been many times when I've thought about stopping, when it becomes, it's sort of like life. It's just like you go through periods in your life where you're up, and you go through periods in your life when you're down. And Song a Day is like a reflection of that. There are periods, sometimes long periods, where I hate it, where my relationship to the project is very antagonistic, and it's like I'm not feeling it, and the songs, I think, reflect that. And my audience gets worried about me, and and then I always find invariably that I sort of come out of that eventually, and it becomes interesting again due to whatever. And so that's another whole side of it, which I think is maybe not as pertinent, because maybe it's just like it's something that's pretty unique to me at this point, or unique to anyone that does something every single day. But maybe people feel that way in their own lives with their own jobs. Like,
I feel
anything that you do, you sort of fall out of love with eventually, and then you can find your way back into love with it.
See, I find that too. I think when you have a way to sort of track sort of milestones over time. It's like with the association chat, it started out as a weekly tweet chat back in 2009. And each week, whenever that chat happens, 2 o'clock
Yeah.
Tuesday, 2 o'clock Tuesday, it's like over time, there were times when I was really hyped up and I'm a go getter and let's go, we're going to have these deep conversations. It transitioned into this interview series. And then there are times where it feels like, I mean, between health issues, personal stuff, feeling not inspired. There was the only earthquake I've ever felt in my life that was just minor, but it hit here while I was having an association chat, and I came back to the chat, but it's like you still show up you always show up, and I can't even imagine like what that's like day by day, but I definitely can relate to what you're saying about periods of time where you just feel like I'm not into it, and people do feel it.
Yeah, they
They do
notice.
sense it. They
Oh,
notice
for
that.
sure.
I'll hear from people I've never met in person, and they'll
Yeah.
say something like, "Are you okay? You've been quiet online lately," and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I am going. It's hard to come back and say anything when you don't know them, but like it's like, yeah, you're picking up on something that's real. Adrian over here says, another Vermonter here. Jonathan, have loved your quirky, heartfelt, light songs for ages. Your persistence reminds me of Seth Godin's, who's been publishing a short blog post every single day for years, and every now and then a gem appears. Have
Mm-hmm.
to mention there's also a 70-20-10 rule about how adults learn these days. 70% on the job, 20% your peers, and only 10% in the classroom.
That's like
It's,
me for sure. I learned nothing in a classroom at
and
all.
Joan says, she asks a question here. Sorry to be a bit late. When you say do something bad, do you mean like with this program, do it in public? You said you share it all. What about for those of us who are very public, like as a trainer, and do it badly in front of a group? What's your
Mm-hmm.
improv? What's your improv trick for covering? I love that question
Yeah.
because here you're out in front of people all the time.
Yeah.
You're putting stuff out there. You're sharing the good, bad, and ugly. Any improv tricks to share?
I think the only advice that I can give in that instance is sort of what I was saying before, is just like the more you do it, the less that'll hurt. And so the more opportunities you have to get up in front of those people and do your thing, I certainly find this when I'm playing shows too. It's like a show can go really badly, and that there's kind of nothing like that's maybe the worst feeling is like
Yeah.
giving a bad talk or like just screwing that up. Yeah, like she's saying, to be in front of an audience. It's one thing for me to screw up online where I make my song, I upload it, and
Yeah.
maybe it shows up in the comments or something, but I don't have to like, be in front of people. Like screwing up in front of people is a whole.
Can
It's
we talk
definitely
about that? Let's
sure.
talk
Yeah,
about that some
yeah.
more. So, like, it's actually refreshing to hear someone like yourself where I've only seen you knock it out of the park. That's it.
Oh
Um,
man. Oh no, for
but can
sure.
we talk like does that happen to you? Has
Oh,
that
absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you a really concrete example. I gave I forget their acronym. Too many acronyms. But
Yeah, yeah.
but one of the first gigs that I booked, I'm like have this speaking agency, right? And one of the first gigs that I booked through them was like a physical therapy association, or it wasn't even an association, it was like a company
Mhm.
in Connecticut. And it went horribly. Like because it was the first one that I was doing through this agency, I thought that I needed to, and this is the moral. I'll give you the moral up front. The moral is basically like, I think the thing is, if you can identify what went wrong, if you can
Mhm.
identify what you effed up, and where the wires got crossed, um, then like I was saying, if you have more opportunities to be in front of people, my mom is trying to wants to be a storyteller, like the moth, and like
Oh,
like,
nice.
and so my
Yeah.
advice to her was just like, as many opportunities that you can get to be in front of people and tell your stories, because then, just like the songs, each opportunity becomes less precious. You don't have to feel like, oh, I messed that up. It's the only gig that I'm going to have this year, and now I
Yeah.
messed it up. So at this
Yeah.
gig, because it was the first one that I booked through this agency, I don't know, I thought that I needed to like, and this is something that maybe you know about better than I do, but this line between how much do I tailor what I do to the association, how much do I tailor my whole shtick
Yeah.
to the thing. If I'm giving a talk, do I make the talk about me? How do I, am I like, well, this is how songwriting relates to physical therapy, right? And so that was a mistake I made. I was like really desperate to like relate very directly song a day and creativity to these physical therapists. And it was just horrible. It was just like really bad. And so what I learned from that is that basically the way I approach it now is I sort of tell my story, and I focus on sort of the things that I've learned in a broad sense, and I don't try to tailor it. I don't try to like make it super specific like that. That's what I learned. But that was like a terrible experience. Like it was so awkward and just felt so wrong,
Oh, I hate that. It's
Oh,
like,
it's the
I
worst.
mean, you learn, hopefully you learn from it every single time. But I mean, like, I hate that, especially when you are right in the middle of it and you know it's not going
Yeah.
the way you want it
Yeah.
to. And you've just got to kind of
Go through it.
wrap it up. And I mean, those times when you're leaving the stage and you're just like, oh God.
I think the fact is, like every single performer, whether you're a trainer in a room
Uh,
with people, or a comedian or a musician or a speaker or a CEO in front of their company, or like whoever, like every single performer has had that.
Yeah.
It's just it's inevitable that some of those are going to happen, I guess. And I guess you just have to, yeah. There's nothing worse than that feeling, though. There
No,
really is.
it's a horrible feeling. So on the topic, continuing on the topic of and by the way, over here on Facebook Live, people are like, you just helped me so much.
Oh,
All
good.
caps, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation.
Oh, good.
And then someone was laughing. They were saying their world records for fixation or obsession. So
only, yeah. Only
yeah.
for me, as far as I know. I'm not entirely sure if there are other ones.
Yeah, I have to say that I think that this is such an interesting you are such an interesting person to talk to about this subject because persistence and creativity, all of us have felt like we've lacked one or the other, and most of the time both. And so you, as sort of being able to plow through that and saying, okay, I don't feel like it, but I'm still showing up, I'm still doing this. There's definitely more to learn. So whenever you're trying to sort of work your way into getting in a more inspired state, do you have any go-tos? I mean, is there like you always go to the well and you use these themes and it pulls up something for you? What works?
So I answer that in a few ways.
Okay.
My go-to thing about inspiration is that it's not a useful construct
Mhm.
for if you want to be creative on demand or whatever. If you want to be creative in the moment when you have to be, then inspiration is not where to look, because inspiration is the thing that it's impossible to chase. Inspiration is the thing that you can sit around waiting your whole life for, and you won't actually get anything done or make anything.
Mhm.
So, the broad way that I approach it is every day when I have to sit down to write a song, no matter what is going on in my life. Often these days, I have 2 kids under the age of 4, and um, it's often at the very, very end of the day when I am bone tired and exhausted that I'm sitting down to do my song in the first place. So, um, like literally, I just sit down. Sometimes I literally just sit down and just start writing words on the
Mhm.
page. not caring at all what they mean, what they say. My philosophy with that is like making something is always better than not making something. Because
I love that.
if you make something, anything,
Yeah.
if you start your, I don't, here I am, I'm going to try to like relate it. But like, if you start your PowerPoint or whatever it is, you just make something. Then you have something tangible to improve, to like fix.
Mm-hmm.
And editing is often easier than just creating. For most people, actually, editing is kind of the hard part for me. But like, so that's my philosophy. It's like I literally just sit down on those days and I am writing nonsense words. And I will say that on many occasions, I find that it is those days that I am surprised and sort of delighted by this thing that came out of left field that I did not expect. When I just sit myself down and force myself to make something, it's great to feel inspired, and it's awesome to sit down and create when you are feeling that inspiration. But it's so rare chasing that muse. It's not a normal feeling that most people get on a daily basis. For me, to get really specific, I realized at some point that there are 3 broad themes, categories that my songs sort of fall into.
Mm-hmm.
And once I sort of realized that was helpful in a way to sort of, when I'm sitting down, to realize which bucket am I sitting in. So, those days when I'm just sitting down and writing words, there's this whole bucket of songs that I make that are sort of, I call poetic. They're of the like Bob Dylan or like Leonard Cohen variety, where they're kind of opaque and they're this poetic language, and what they mean can be debated, right? And so that's like one category of song. Another one is personal. So anything and everything that's happening in my life. Like one of the songs that went really viral that I had was this song I made with an ex, where we were breaking up, and we wanted to like announce to all of our friends in one fell swoop that we were breaking up. And so rather than do like a Facebook post or something, we like made a song about how we needed to break up, etc. And a lot of songs come out of that space. So when I sit down, I can ask myself, like, is there something going on with me right now that I want to put into song form? And then the third bucket is like I call topical, which is like anything outside of myself in the world, online, politics, technology, video games, associations, anything in that zone. So it just helps. It helps to like frame for myself, where am I in space? Which of those buckets am I sitting in? And that just helps guide me, down a given path.
I love that, because I think that I think that it helps to actually have some tangible, this is the way that you sort of can approach it, and have these different buckets from which to approach your work that you do, so that something gets done. Some these themes help you to get things produced. And I totally agree with the idea that it's almost this discipline of showing up, just showing up, and that is the hardest part.
It's the hardest part.
Yeah, whether it's exercise or anything, I feel like it's just like, if you just show up, you win. You're much further than you would be if you hit snooze or just went ahead and didn't do it, what have you. And I think that, making space to let new ideas come in, just allowing yourself. Adrian was saying over here that the best creative times for me are when I'm doing semi-automatic stuff, taking a shower,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
driving somewhere,
absolutely.
daydreaming. And I was just thinking today, I'm like, I have this like journal thing that I'm working through, and each day they have a different challenge. And the challenge today was to take 10 minutes and take your tea or your coffee, and just savor it, which is bizarre because I realized that I never do that. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never just do that. I'm
yeah,
always like, it's like coffee, talking to you, writing stuff down,
yeah,
it's like all this other stuff. And when I did that, I had like 5 different things that I thought, "Oh, this is gonna make this better,"
yeah.
in 10 minutes,
Yep.
in 10 minutes. So it's kind of crazy the way that that works. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was on the subject of creativity and sort of trying new things. Of course, you've got showing up every day. You've got being persistent, consistent, tenacious about what you're doing. But do you ever collaborate? Do you ever do like creative collaborations with others? I know that in like the event space, there are different song creatives who work with events.
Hmm.
So if you have, then would you mind sharing with me some of those ways that you've maybe collaborated?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So collaborating in song a day space has similar, has also sort of gone through these sort of periods of ups and downs where I'm doing a lot and then sometimes I'm pulling back and not doing as many. Um, and I will say that since my kids have been born, like so much, they were born, my son was born like 5 years in to Song a Day. So much changed about how Song a Day operated after he was born and now my
Yeah.
second. And one of those is that I'm not able to collaborate nearly as much. Collaborating on a daily project, it can be really tricky because there's so many moving parts. I did in January, I think of 2014. I think that's when it was. I did 31 days of collaboration. So I put
Wow.
out the call to my audience. I made a spreadsheet. It was first come, first serve. Everyone chose a day,
I missed it.
and every day we did, it was crazy. It was just like different configurations. Like they would make a track and I would put a song to it. Like they gave me lyrics and they would sing it. Like somebody played drums and like just it was just all kinds of different configurations. It was amazing. And then on it was such a logistical nightmare. But then on January 31st, I organized sort of all throughout the month. I organized like everybody who had collaborated and then open to the public, anyone that wanted to. We did like a 52-person collaboration where people
Oh
were
my
playing
gosh.
all the instruments, people were doing all the singing. um it was crazy. It was like an insane amount of work.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Cheers to
So
you on that. I want more coffee.
so that was a lot of fun, and there's something, of course, about collaboration that is so great. You get things. um I'm endlessly, in love and fascinated with other people's abilities. It's like you're always I'm always so in love with what other people can do, especially things that don't come easily to me. So these different styles of music that people would bring in that month and these different kinds of skills sort of augmenting what I do and us becoming something bigger and more interesting. Um, that's what I love about collaboration. It just makes everything not necessarily better, but at least more interesting for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, like you were saying, I haven't done any kind of collaboration with any of the other um, music based speaker performer folks. I hadn't heard of the ones that you sent me. I forget exactly who they were. But there's like, I feel like there's we at last XTP, there was Saul Paul, of course,
Right.
and there's like a whole host of different people doing, various things with improv and music and songs and things like that. Um, I think the two times that I've seen you now, it's been mostly the video stuff that been doing, which is like which is sort of a different kind of collaboration, right? Where
Yeah.
um, I get the people at the conference to sort of collaborate with me in the making of a video about the conference.
So when you're doing that, when you're doing those, I mean, that's a job. You're getting paid to do that. Does that count towards your song a day, or do you still have to create a song a day?
Depends. Oftentimes if I can, I'm using that song as my song a day.
Yeah.
That's my goal. I would like to.
Yeah, because I would be like, "Oh god, doesn't this count? Doesn't this count?" Especially because 'cause you're under the gun. You have to create
Yeah,
this stuff really fast, you
really
know?
fast. Yeah. I do. Yeah, it depends. It depends on what they want, right? If they don't want it out yet, then I have to do it. Then I have to do another song. But very often I'm like, can I post this? And it works. So
So, okay, and that's another fascinating thing for me, and I'm gonna kind of, like, jump into where I've seen you do your thing, where I've seen you, like, kind of you're recording in different areas, you're capturing, you're interviewing, you're setting things up, and by the end of the conference, you've got all of these moments, and somehow this thing has been created while everybody else was doing other stuff, and it's just kind of cool because you pull it all together. But I'm actually interested in how you go about. I saw you running around before the last conference we were at together, way before the opening keynote, way before all of that, and so you were already scoping the joint before they anybody knew who you were. And, so what are you looking for? What are some of the things that you're just like, "Okay, I know. I've gotta get this person. I've gotta get that situation," whatever. How do you go about this?
yeah, so the it's funny because the video stuff is actually relatively new. It's like a new thing that I've added to my repertoire, as it
Mhm.
were. I started out with conferences at TEDMed, the medical version of the TED conferences,
Yeah.
doing and this is what I did like from 2011 to 2013 exclusively is like recap songs. So like the video but without the video, where I'll watch the talks and then at the end of the day get up and sing a song that it's sort of like sketch notes but with song. So like I'll just recap everything that happened throughout the day in like a 4-minute song or whatever. So that's sort of where I started, and then doing speaking and adding in things where, especially if there's like a multi-track kind of conference, where I'll do I'll come with half a song and perform half the song at the beginning of the conference. And then I'll solicit ideas from everybody in the room. They just yell out, like
Yeah.
whatever, bed bugs. And then like I incorporate all that into a finished song at the end. Um,
Have you ever done anything for Pest World? That just reminded me of them. They would be perfect for that. They'd be
they would,
perfect. Yeah.
Pest World, I've been in touch with. That was from, unfortunately, that was from a home care
Oh.
association, bed bugs. Anyway,
Is it? Oh.
which is a whole other thing. But
Yeah.
so that's where I sort of came out of, and I still do a lot of that stuff. But the video stuff actually started at XDP last year at the Experience Design thing from ASAE, and it was actually, I don't know, this is probably too inside baseball, and I probably shouldn't even talk about it. But it was because they booked Saul Paul as the sort of music on the stage performer guy, and I really wanted to be there and do something. So I was talking with them, and I just on a whim, I pitched them. I said, okay, here's what I can do. I can make a video that by the next morning you can have like a fully produced song and a video that you can show. And that sort of convinced them to let me come and do it. So that was like literally the first time. It wasn't the first time that I had ever done that. I had done that in various configurations for other things, but in terms of a conference, I was getting paid to do it. It was the
Yeah.
first time.
I had
So
no idea. I figured that, I mean, because when I saw you for the first time, it was at that XDP. It was before
yeah,
tech and all this other stuff. So I was just like, "Oh, yeah, he's got this. This is his thing. He does this all the time." But
yeah.
it was
So
amazing.
So, one thing is like way back to the beginning of our conversation. The other thing that I've gotten really good at, the other muscle, and in addition to my voice, the muscle that I've worked out that has been that I've gotten so much better at and so good at is working very quickly, right? And making a song and a video, because every day I post to YouTube, I make a video too. So I have these skills to make something very quickly. So to answer your question, it's really just a gut. It's like a gut thing. And I'm sort of in a desperate state, you know, I'm in a desperate state of like, I know that I'm under the gun. And so what I'm looking for is like the pieces that I know will fit into the puzzle. And I don't know exactly how to explain how I know it when I see it, but that's what, when you saw me that day and I was like wandering around, I was just trying to get a lay of the land. It's like, okay, I need to be over here. I need to be over there. And, at that conference, I realized like, okay, well, all of these rooms that everyone's going to be in, they all look the same and they don't look good. So that was like what I learned from like walking around. So then I had it in my head, I'm going to have a lot of other shots to cut to that are interesting rather than just see it. XTP, of course, has its own
creative.
It's so beautiful just to look at. You could shoot it from any angle and it's going to be interesting, and there's things moving and lights and everything. So it's a relatively new kind of idea, and at XTP we're going to be doing something similar but a little bit different this year. But I really enjoy it. I like doing all configurations of it, being in front of people and singing and speaking. I also really love doing the video stuff. It's a whole other kind of challenge, and I do find it's nice how challenging it is. There's this idea that you get into a state of flow when your skills are just below, whatever the task is. You're like barely coming up against the ability to complete the task.
Yeah.
And I feel like oftentimes that's where I am with these video things, where it's very much in the pocket of like, it's challenging. It's like a really good feeling of challenging for me, and I really enjoy it.
That's so awesome. I've got a couple questions from some people who are participating right now. And one of them is, do you come up with song fragments, build up a bank of them over time and go over them when you're looking for the next song? Or do you actually write each song in one day?
It's funny. I generally don't do that. I know of so many artists and musicians who keep a notebook where they write down lines and song ideas, or they'll record song fragments on their phone or whatever. And I generally, occasionally there'll be something like that, or there'll be some kind of idea that I'll have one day and I won't have time to do it on that given day. So it'll sort of get, but in general, it's much more like in the moment. It's much more just day to day, me trying to find whatever the thing is that I'm going to write about.
So here's another question. This is fantastic. I have so many questions for you. See, the thing is this happened because I already had a ton of questions for you, and now I'm getting more. So the second question we have here is, do you collaborate with songs and graphic facilitators? It would seem an amazing way to do this, sort of like using World Cafe, but bigger.
So are they talking about like the sketch notes people? Yeah, I haven't done that. I've thought about it. I met a guy at a conference in September who does sketch notes a lot, and we talked about it a little bit, but I haven't. It does seem like it would be a sort of a perfect fit in some ways.
Yeah. So here's my question. I want to find out a little bit more about, as you have gotten better about showing up and being consistent and having that discipline to do this one thing, have you found that helps you to also be disciplined in other areas? Like, for example, have you decided, okay, so I've got this song a day thing pretty mastered, so now I want to learn how to play, the harmonica, and so I'm going to do that every day. Like, have you found that it helps, or in what ways?
No. The answer is no. Very interesting, actually, that the only other thing that I really is run. I've trained myself to have to run in sort of the same way that I write a song every day.
Mhm.
Pretty much unless I'm sick, I'm going to be out running.
Are have you suffered from did you grow up and you had, like, a thing that you just consistently had to do, or
No, and it doesn't come from like an OCD kind of place. It's funny. A lot of people
Yeah,
assume that there's like an obsessive quality to it, but I'm not an obsessive person, which is, I know it
yeah.
sounds crazy, but
No.
um but yeah, you know, and I don't know why that is. I think in some ways one only has, I think, so much, and I think this is sort of a thing that they've proven, although maybe I saw a thing that where they disproved it. But like the idea that you only have so much willpower, and
Yes,
you can
yes.
deplete your willpower, and once it's gone, and you have to give it time to build back up. And I
Mhm.
think anyway, that whether or not that is true science wise, it certainly feels true. And I wonder if something like that is at play with Song a Day, where, you know, I only have enough room uh
To do
to
that.
I know, one thing that's interesting actually is I do know of a fair number of people online. I come across other thing a day people quite
Yeah,
frequently. There's a whole host of people who will do a thing a day each year, and they'll change it.
yeah,
I remember coming across a guy who wanted to learn like all the Adobe products. They wanted to learn Illustrator, and they want to learn Photoshop, and they want to learn After Effects. And so just year by year, they would just do a Photoshop thing a day, an After Effects thing a day. What a great way to just in 4 years, become completely
the
proficient
expert and
in
yeah.
in that whole thing. Maybe one year you do a drawing a day, and the next year you do a poem a day, and the next year you do a photograph a day. Um, I think that's a great way to. I've sort of locked myself into the song a day thing, but like for other people, what a great way to do that. And of course, there's so many other wonderful um, sort of force yourself to be creative projects out there. There's NaNoWriMo, which is you
Mhm.
write a novel in the month of November. There's a great thing that happens in February, what we're in now, to make an album, make a whole album of music in February. Song a Day started with this thing called Fun a Day, which still happens, which is just to challenge you to make one thing every day in January. Um,
Oh, I
uh,
didn't know that. How cool.
and that's how Song a Day
That's so
started. In
cool.
January of 2009, my friend gave me a flyer for Fun a Day, make a song a day in January. So I did that, and then I just kept going. I just didn't stop. And that's
Wow.
literally how it happened.
What's one of the most surprising things that you've discovered in the process of making a song a day?
Hmm. Um. Well, I think really it's just sort of more of an overall thing, which is, you know, I it's sort of just taken me all that down all these paths that I did would never have expected to go down.
Mhm.
And you know, I think maybe it's just more of like just the way maybe a lot of people are just surprised by their lives. And so
Mhm.
Song a Day is so intertwined in my life that it just sort of the way that it feels is that it's just the things that Song a Day has brought into my life in general. It's just surprising, all of it.
Yeah.
The opportunities that I've gotten, you know, the way that I make my living now is surprising. Um, I mean, really, it's just
Yeah.
it's wacky, and uh, it's all from Song of the. I mean, like it's very clear to me that like if I hadn't done that, so much my whole thing would be different, right?
Mhm.
And so,
It's such a fascinating thing, and I feel like it's probably has to make you feel good. You've seen how this thing that you've worked on, how it has transformed your life. It's really sort of molded it into what it is today. And it is something where you seem to, because it's sort of permeated, it's become part of you or you. It seems like it is finding its way into all these different sort of creative variations as it goes out. I don't know what this is. Those people who are listening to this as audio, I'm kind of doing a little dance while I'm talking. It's amazing. But what do you think as far as you've gone along? Obviously, you are a musician, you have these musical abilities, but what are maybe some of the skills or strengths that you have that you've pulled from the most in order to do what you do today?
I don't know if they're skills exactly. I think that there's something um that that is like innate, that I think is more innate to me
Yeah.
somehow. I don't know if it's something that just I started writing songs when I was 12, and I knew like then that that's what I wanted to do. Like I knew that somehow I wanted to just make songs all the time. And I think that there's a sort of like stubbornness that I have, and like um my wife, she follows like the Gretchen Rubin matrix of like which category do you fall into, an
Yeah.
obliger or a rebel or whatever. And like I'm a very clear rebel. Like my satisfaction, a lot of it comes from me needing to like convince myself. Like I'm not going to
Mhm.
be convinced by many other outside sources. So I think like the thing that has pushed me to be the way that I am and do the thing that I do is like this kind of like um internal restlessness of wanting to just make another song all the time,
Yeah.
basically.
I was just thinking about, you have the 2 little ones and how hard it would be for any of them to, like, to come to you one day and say, like, "I just don't wanna," you
Yeah.
know? Like, "Oh, dude, I've been dealing with 'I don't wanna' so much, you have no idea." I mean, your dad's the song a day man, like, how are you gonna do that? That's so
It
crazy.
is very interesting. Like I came from a non-musical family. Like nobody in my family did any kind of music. It was
That's shocking to
just
me.
it was not around. It was not, I mean, they listened to music, and I got into music because of records and tapes that they had around, but like not nobody played music or anything. So it's interesting. I'm very curious to see that as my kids grow, having music around, is that gonna push them towards it or push them away
Yeah.
from it? You just never know, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. So, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is I'm really fascinated by weird is better thing.
Mm.
It's sort of a talk that I've given and all of
Mhm.
this stuff. Um, what do you think about weird? You talked about working on things that are sort of weird to what you do, and that's like singing in different ways has sort of strengthened your voice and stuff.
Mhm.
What do you think about that? Do you think you're weird, and if so, in what ways?
It's funny. I'm looking on my computer here because I literally have a song. Let's see, what number is it? Uh Song number 919.
Yeah.
And it's literally called I'll Always Choose Weird.
Are you kidding? This is
No.
awesome. I'll always choose weird.
I,
That's so
pr- I
cool.
If I could play it, if I could remember it, I would play it for you. But
Oh,
the uh the lyrics are, when I've got the choice most of the time between being normal or weird like I always choose weird no matter the cost. I don't want to be normal, don't want it at all. When we're little, we're given the goal to act abnormal, to put on a show. We wear crazy outfits to the grocery store, and when we're tired, we sit on the floor. When you grow up and everyone says you got to do it this way, don't do it that way, but I'd rather be weird than listen to them. I'd rather be stretchy than be unable to bend.
Ooh.
I'll
Yay!
send
Oh
it to
my
you afterwards. You
gosh. I
can,
love that. Can I share it? Can I share it with people who
yeah.
are, the listeners? I might link to it, you guys, in the show notes if I get permission, and so that you can check it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm a huge believer in weird. I think yeah, and that's always been something that I've been very interested in, is never wanting to be um and I think also, I mean, I will say I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for people who don't want to be weird, for
Mhm.
people who feel comfortable sort of blending in or not sticking out in any way, who are more comfortable in that zone,
Yeah.
um and that took me a while to sort of realize that some people, that's just what they want. It's very different than what I want. But I my uncle, when I was a kid, did this. He was so empathic with me. He very astutely recognized this streak in me, this need and desire to be different and to be weird. Uh, that's so strong. And he told me, he said, I was probably 10 or something. And he said to me, like, if you really want to be different from everybody else,
Mhm.
like, you won't do any drugs, and
Mm.
you won't smoke, and you won't drink. Like, that will make you different from everyone else. And I took that so to heart at that age, and he was so right. It like, I was totally, it was like it was weird. People just, for all through high school, all through college, people were like, thought I was so weird, for not doing that. And he was absolutely right. It was like such a good mind trick that he played on me, because
Mhm.
he recognized that. So it's from that age, it's just always been a part of my identity, I guess, in a weird way.
In a
No
weird
pun
way.
intended.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Well, I know that we're coming to the end of the hour, but I wanted to ask you one last question. And I actually written it so that it was asking you who is one weird person that inspires you and why. But really, I think that when you're talking with somebody who has consistently put out creative efforts, creative art, and has been consistent, surely there are people who have inspired you at different points in your life. So, who's one weird person? But if you can't think of somebody like that, then who's one person that you would say has really inspired you?
Yeah. Yeah. So my main weird like music influence is someone that a lot of people have heard of, but not everybody. His name is Jonathan Richmond.
Hmm.
Share a name, and I discovered him because my high school English teacher said, "Oh, your name is Jonathan, and you write songs. You need to know about Jonathan Richmond." And his CD sat on my shelf for months because my English teacher had given it to me, and I thought, like, how cool could he be if my English teacher? Um, but I put his music on, and he has had a bigger influence on me maybe than any musician, and he is the definition of weird. He's I often sort of wonder if, it's hard to know as a musician, as an artist, like, if your weirdness is, how much of it are you putting on, and how much of it is real. I don't know. That's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Richmond, to me, is one of these artists who, his weirdness just feels so authentic. Um, and the thing that I learned from him, and the thing that was is weird about what he does, is just that a song can be about anything. And
Mm.
that's something that he taught me. No matter how weird or esoteric or personal to you the subject matter. And the example I always give, which is I think the best example, is that Jonathan Richmond has this really wonderful song called Chewing Gum Wrapper. And it's literally just about a little chewing gum wrapper that he saw on the street that he thought was beautiful in its own way.
Wow.
And those kinds of songs that he wrote were profound for me in sort of expanding my ideas about what music and songs could be. And, you know, in my whole career as a songwriter, that has just brought me so many different places that I wouldn't have gone, you know, I feel like had I not discovered him at the moment that I did.
That's so cool. I feel like if this were the John Peel sessions or something, like I would, you know, play a track from right
Yeah,
now. But
put it
like,
in. Yeah.
yeah, but I definitely I'm gonna go seek that out. I'll go search and find
Yeah,
out
I'll
more
send you
about it.
that too. I'll send you the weird song and the chewing gum wrapper song.
Awesome. Well, I cannot believe how much fun this has been, and it's just an incredible hour. And thanks to all of you who are watching.
Yeah,
I hope,
thanks for watching.
yeah, this has been
It's
incredible.
been good.
Yeah. So I hope you've learned something helpful that you'll be able to apply to your lives. Next week, I'm going to have Liz Caruso. Those of you in the event space know her really well. Know her as Liz King Events, but Liz King Caruso is going to be talking about creative ways to engage attendees before and during and after your conferences and events. So I hope you're able to tune in if you're interested at all in that kind of thing. And I have to say, until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great week, everyone. Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.